Jim Shoots back with Get Off My Lawn. We've been talking about school reform, and in a second I'm going to introduce you to Kenneth Everett, who's going to tell us how you teach kids, difficult to reach kids. Before, I want to let him talk a little bit when he gets going to explain what he does and who he is. And before we do that, excuse me, I don't want to keep Glenn on hold forever. Glenn on line 2, how are you this morning?
Good morning.
Howdy.
I've been around a while, and what I've seen since the integration of schools, there has been a deliberate and systematic motion plan set in motion to destroy public education. And right now, what you're seeing is a tree that was planted 30, 40, 50 years ago. And that mindset now has become a tree. And you have, in this country, you have institutions that are set in place to destroy public education. And when you destroy public education, people don't realize there are catchphrases. When you say public, that normally means poor folks or black people. And this is one of the things that has happened. We close schools here. Mr. Schultz, you talk about catching the kids from K to 3. They close schools here K through 3.
Right. They close the schools where people are moving out of the neighborhoods.
No, that wasn't necessarily the case. That wasn't necessarily the case. You can argue that some, but that doesn't hold a true validity.
How come?
The school, I worked in one of the schools that they closed.
Right.
Okay. You could have took that school, which was not overcrowded, nor was it understaffed with students. You had enough students there to keep that school open.
How were those kids testing at the end of 3rd grade?
Those kids, that school had been recognized.
Yeah.
Recognized, exemplary. I'm talking about the school was working.
Is it Pearl C or?
No, it was Phyllis Wheatley.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Phyllis Wheatley. I worked at Phyllis Wheatley.
Mm-hmm.
You went through and they allowed them to destroy those schools, and then you tell the kids, oh, but then we don't want you to go to jail. You're setting them up for failure. And when I say you, I'm talking about us as a society, as a country.
Okay,
here.
Glenn, I appreciate your call. I'm going to let you go because I want to get on to Kenneth. But the point Glenn makes is a fair one. There are people life is complicated, and there are people in the school reform movement who absolutely, he's right, are dedicated to the end of public education. But I don't believe that they are the core of it. We have to save public education from those people by making public education successful. But Glenn's not wrong. I mean, he's right that there are people who have an agenda against public education. I know some of them, and we need. I believe strongly that we need to save public education from those folks. But in order to do it, we got to make it successful. I want to introduce you to Kenneth Everett, who is the creator of No Pencil, No Paper, No Calculator. And Kenneth, could you explain what that is? What do you mean?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for having me here to be able to discuss some of the things that I'm doing to make a difference with the children. No pencil, no paper, no calculator. I've been blessed to have some concepts that have never been seen before. And if you notice, a lot of kids, they end up coming out of schools with no backpack, no pencil. You're talking about a lot of inner city schools and suburb schools also. No pencil, no backpack. They're leaving school. So we've got to be able to reach these children. We just can't say, oh, he doesn't have any pencil. He doesn't have a pencil. He doesn't pay. He's not going to do it.
He doesn't have an iPad. He doesn't have an iPad.
No.
Yeah, all that stuff.
No.
Okay.
See, my philosophy has always been, let me write it on your brain before you write it on your paper. So if you take that child that comes in, no pencil, no paper, and he's trying to give you an excuse why he's not going to do any work, say, okay, no problem. Okay, because I want you to just pay attention. And that way I can actually do some things for you to motivate you. Because if we can start to motivate these children, then we can educate them. And that's what my no pencil, no paper approach is about, is taking children and giving them a no pencil, no paper approach with some concepts that can be taught to a 3rd or 4th grader.
And some of those kids are sitting there looking at you hard-eyed. I hate you. I hate being here. I hate all this. So what do you do?
Well, first of all, the one thing that I do is I try to bring value to an education. So if you can bring that value, if you can show that kid how valuable that education is to him or her, then you can start to reach them. And so you have to, when you talk about inner city schools, you have to be more than a teacher. You have to be a motivator. Mm-hmm. And so motivating that child, finding ways, well, first of all, Jim, my degree is in math and psychology. Mm-hmm. So I've got the upper hand over that child from the start with the schooling that I've gotten with the psychology. So I'm trying to get into that kid's head to get him to understand the value of an education.
And you believe in your heart of hearts that you can?
Oh, without a doubt. I've taken students that have failed the tax test 4 and 5 times. And I come in and I show them 1 or 2 concepts that they can see and they can believe and they can apply to those problems that they have to be tested on and get it right without pencil and paper. Well, I've got them because I've given them hope.
When you say show them, what do you mean? Show them the concept. Show them how?
Well, see, people can visually see something. If I can visually see it, I can write it on your brain. It's like you go to a movie and you can see the scenes. You can remember the scenes. Well, if you the person that reads it, they may be able to explain to you right away what they saw, but what they read. But that person that saw it, oh, I remember this happened, that happened. Oh, so what I do is I train eyes in my math teaching. I train eyes, and because I'm able to train the eyes, I'm actually writing it on their brain.
Give me an example. We don't want to get too far into math because one of the things that happens to people if they're no good at math and they have a low self-concept, it leads to a life of journalism, which is why I'm here. So I don't want to go too far into the math, but tell me what's an example of something you can picture out.
Okay, visually, you walk on the floor every day. That's a horizontal line.
Right. A
horizontal line has a slope of 0. Well, Jim, when was the last time you walked up the wall?
It's been a while.
That's a vertical line.
Yeah.
It's undefined. How old do you have to be to know that when you walk on the floor, it's a horizontal line? How old do you have to be to know that you can't walk up a wall?
Right.
So you can start teaching that, and that's an algebra, something that they need to know in algebra that they're going to be tested over. Okay.
What is the algebra concept that you're getting them to?
well, one of the things that I try to do, Jim, is that looking at all the tests that the kids are taking, and we're teaching to a test. You don't teach to a test. You teach the concept. Mm-hmm. Okay, let me give you a prime example. No matter what country you're in, you have to know that the equation of a line is y equals mx plus b.
Okay.
Well, if you want that kid to totally understand, you start with a point. Then you take another point. So now you draw a line.
Right.
It takes 2 points to make a line. How old do you have to be to know that 2 points, you can connect them and you have a line?
Right.
Okay. That line has an equation, but you don't forget to tell that individual that a line is made up of nothing but points that are touching together. Mm-hmm. So now all of a sudden the kid has the equation of a line being y equals mx plus b. So now you're driving down the street with your child. You see a telephone pole. Son, does that telephone pole has an equation? Oh, yeah, Dad, it does. It's y equal mx plus b. See, so you start at a point and you build, so you're building a foundation. And that's what I do. I start with a foundation and I build on that foundation.
What age group kids?
What I'm trying to do, Jim, is that I know that you can take a 3rd grader, a 4th grader, and you can begin to teach them Algebra 1 concepts and also Algebra 2 concepts because it's a building process. And I have created a book which is called Knowledge Plus Skills Concept Book. And I've taken my over 20-something years and I put these concepts in a book, so that if a parent wants to teach his or her child at home, or even when the child comes home, if you go over these concepts, you can build that foundation so that your child can eventually take the pre-AP classes.
But what if you got the kid who's already in middle school and he didn't get any of that?
Oh, that's why it's so simple. Because of the fact in order for you to take that kid that is struggling, You've got to start with a foundation. You got to build on something. It's like if you're going to build a building, you build that foundation. You make sure that that foundation, if you want to go up a lot of stories for the building, you got to go deep. So what we have to do is we have to start early. If you want to go deep with building a foundation with a child, you have to start early. And so, but if you miss them and you start late, you still have the concepts that I've come up with to make it easy for your child to learn.
Okay, let's say we're in middle school.
Okay.
And you're starting late. And let's say you got a room full of gangbangers.
Okay.
Who are giving you that look.
I've had that.
What do you do?
Well, first of all, Jim, the thing that I did was I told them that, hey, I can't force you out of a gang. But one thing I can do is I can put something in your brain that if you decide to get out of the gang, then there's a way for you to eventually, if you have a family, to take care of your family. See, you're giving them hope, you know, to take care of your family, to take care of yourself. I say, all I need you to do is pay attention. You have no pencil, no paper, no problem. I did that for 11 years ago, over 11 years, when I was teaching at a school where all the gangbangers wanted to be in my class. Because they
wanted to be in your class.
They wanted to be in class. The thing that they were saying is that you need to be in Mr. Everett's class because he's not going to get angry with you because you're in a gang. He's going to teach to you anyway. See, sometimes we write children off, and you can't ever write anyone out because you never know when they're going to change.
So you're not writing them off. You're linking it up with what this stuff is worth. You're telling them this is how you lead a life later.
Right.
You're giving them a motivation. And you're able to reach them without being all judgmental about them.
Right. You know, it's about attitude. Well, first of all, as a teacher, I have to have the right attitude. I'm smiling all the time.
Right.
You know, I give you a prime example. I was teaching at a school, and first time I was teaching, the girl came in and cursed me out. Well, most teachers would have wrote that student up. You know, you can't come in and curse me out. You know, I told her, I apologized in front of the whole class. Said, hey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't know what I did to you, but I'm sorry. In front of the class, and so all the kids says, you didn't do anything to her. I tell you what the young lady did, Jim. At the end of the class, she came up to me crying, apologizing, saying she was sorry. Because I knew that something else had to be going on with that child to attack me, and I hadn't done anything to her.
So you're not mad at that kid?
No.
You're not mad at those kids?
Nah.
And you don't look at them and think, you kids are a bunch of losers and I'm stuck with you because I didn't get to teach in college or whatever.
It's attitude. I have to look at the fact that my attitude can change their attitude.
Why do you want to do it?
I'll tell you why. Because I understand that I have two daughters. One's 26 and one's 19. I've got to make an impact on other people's lives because of the fact that I want the Lord to take care of my children. So my thing is that if I go and help someone else's child, then that may be me helping my own child, because that could be that individual that maybe my daughter runs into. So I'm about changing other people's children because of the fact that I know that my daughters are out there in the world and I can't be with them. So I have to make an impact myself on younger people.
We're going to pause for 1 second. We've had Erica hanging on line 3. Erica, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm there.
What's up?
That's very touching what he had said. Because while I was growing up, I had to pretty much teach myself. Because my dad's from over the border. But he has his green card.
Yeah.
My mom, she's from Laredo, and back in the day, they didn't really care if you didn't go to school, like truancy.
Yeah.
And so she really didn't go to school, so it hurts me. It makes me cry because sometimes when she needs help spelling a word like need, it just makes me cry because it's such an easy word. How can you not know how to spell that?
Yeah.
But she didn't taught that, so I had to pretty much teach myself, learn from my sister, and pretty much by what I see.
How'd you do it? How'd you teach yourself?
Getting hurt, you gotta fall. I guess you just gotta.
But you taught yourself.
Yeah, if you think of everything, it's pretty much common sense. Everything's basically right there thrown in your face. Common sense. How would you do that? Step by step by step.
Yeah. When Mr. Everett and I first met and we talked about this, I said that a lot of teaching that I remember was put it on the blackboard. There's the equation. Get it or not, kid. It's kind of, there it is.
People have different ways of doing the way they think it's a good idea to put it in people's heads. Kind of, I guess, like manipulating, I guess.
Right.
But, I mean, everybody has different, good ways that, stick in your head, and some ways you can't get it. And it's just like, what is that there for? What do I use that for?
Erica, I listen, I thank you for calling. I'm going to let you go at this point but I want to, I guess I want to go to break. I hear the break coming up, and we'll be back after this break with Get Off My Lawn. Thank you for calling.
If it's time to get rid of your old gas guzzler, the KNON Vehicle Donation Program can help. There is still a market for those old vehicles, and if you donate it, you are helping to support the quality programming here on KNON. Just call 877-KNON-AUTO or go online to KNON.org. We'll take care of everything from pickup to tax paperwork. That's 877-KNON-AUTO.
Kiki Friedman's Man in Black Tequila presents the 4th annual KNON Fort Worth Blues Fest this Sunday, March 24th at the Live Oak Music Hall in Fort Worth. This year's lineup stars Holland K. Smith with special guests Buddy Whittington, Larry Lampkin, Trainwreck featuring Reverend K.M. Williams, Washboard Jackson, and Jeff Stone, the Michael Lee Band, Robert Johnson Soul from Austin, Jackie Donlow, and Kirkland James. Doors open at 3 and the music starts right away. The event will be hosted by Blue Lisa. There will be food available courtesy of the Live Oak Music Hall. We'll be raffling off a custom KNON guitar from Kona Guitars. Tickets are on sale now at KNON.org, Forever Young Records in Grand Prairie, and Record Town in Fort Worth. The beautiful Live Oak Music Hall is located at 1311 Lipscomb Avenue in Fort Worth and is a non-smoking venue. That's the 4th annual KNON Fort Worth Blues Fest starring Holland K. Smith with special guest Buddy Whittington, Larry Lampkin, Trainwreck featuring Reverend K.M. Williams, Washboard Jackson and Jeff Stone, the Michael Lee Band, Robert Johnson Soul from Austin, Jackie Donlow, and Kirkland James this Sunday, March 24th at the Live Oak Music Hall in Fort Worth, sponsored by Kinky Friedman's Man in Black Tequila, available now.
It's going wrong.
Hey, babes, take one.
Jim Schutz back with Get Off My Lawn. We're talking about kids and how to teach them. Our guest is Kenneth Everett, the creator of No Pencil, No Paper, No Calculator. And he's invented ways of reaching hard to reach kids and teaching them math concepts that they need. Mr. Everett, when you're talking to a young student, let's say a young man out on the street, and he's all tough and everything, and he doesn't care, what's really in that kid's heart in your experience in terms of not being able to do math? What effect does it have on that kid in life not to be able to do any math?
Well, what happens is he's putting himself in a box. And see, I'm thinking back, Mr. Shooks, when I had some kids that were in the gang, and I told a young man, I said, if you don't let me teach you, then you're limiting yourself. What's going to happen if you have a son, and that son wants you to buy him something, and you can't get it because you don't have the funds to do that? I say, how is that going to make you feel? So you have to get them to start thinking a little bit further than right now.
When we spoke before, when we first met, though, you talked about how tough it is to, in your words, break them down when they come in that room, and then they go back out in the hall.
It's an ongoing thing, and I feel for a lot of the teachers that it starts to affect them, because you think you've gotten to that child, and then he comes back the next day and he's got that same attitude. Well, the thing is that your attitude has to always stay where it needs to be, and that's the thing that I've been able to master is not letting that child affects the way I treat that child. I told a child just about 2 weeks ago, he finally decided he wanted to learn. But he'd been giving me a hard time.
Right.
But if I had the wrong attitude, I said, man, you wasted too much of my time. I ain't got time to teach you.
Yeah.
But I told him, I turned to him and I said, hey, I'm so glad that your attitude has changed. I say, man, I'll help you as much as I can.
If you're dealing with those tough to reach kids,
Okay.
and they go out back out in the hall, back out on the street, and they're going to react to that reality, and that's why they're coming back in tough, right? 'Cause
Right.
they've been dealing with that reality. But how long can you do that as the teacher and keep your heart open and your hopes up?
I think the biggest plus is you get a break on Friday. Friday comes around, spring break comes around.
But it's
because
hard.
It's really, really hard because of the fact that you can find your attitude starting to change toward a child.
This is another issue I've had with some of the school reformers. Sometimes it just depends on which ones you're talking to. They are very quick to leap to the assumption that the way to take care of burned out teachers is to fire them. And there was a whole, when George W. Bush was governor, he had this lady who worked on education issues for him, whose name was Hunter. I can't remember her first name, but she was from Houston. And she had a whole bunch of evidence to argue that that's absolutely not true. It's the wrong way to go, that you can retrain teachers and you can reach them. You got to open those teachers back up just the way you're opening up the students, right?
Yeah, you're right, Mr. Shooks, because, you take the experience that a teacher gets over a period of years. You can't find that in a first year teacher. Mm-hmm. That experience. That's like trying to find a doctor, and this doctor's been doing it for 30 years. Yeah. And you're going to think that a first year doctor is going to have the same skills as that 30-year doctor. Yeah. That's not going to happen. Right. So you have to try to keep those teachers around because they have ways of reaching the children. Right. And think about this, Mr. Shooks. If we're talking about math and a young first year teacher comes in and it's not feeling successful, and you've let that experienced teacher go, that young teacher is going to say, I don't have to deal with this. Right. I can go get me another job.
Right. Let me pause. We've got Ms. Collins on line 4, I hope. Ms. Collins, are you still patiently there waiting for us?
Yes, I am.
Please, welcome to the show. What's up today, Ms. Collins?
I'm a teacher, and I understand what he's saying. The problem is, I'm a second grade teacher. Right. When they got rid of a whole bunch of teachers back in 2009 and started this whole mess, I understand getting to the older kids. Yeah. But I've got kids in this class. We've got 30 second graders that are maybe 8 years old. Right. They're on medication. They have to take medication at school. They live in the Fort Worth shelter. Mm-hmm. They have parents. One parent's in prison, and the other parent is living in a shelter, walking the streets during the day while their kids at school. Right. And they go home. They don't get any support at home. They fight with the kids in the shelter, and it's impossible to reach all those kids on all kinds of different medications and tell them to be positive. It's good, it's a little hard to learn this for them. A lot of them just can't read. Their medication has a lot to do with it.
Well, Ms. Collins, I tell me if I'm reading something into this, but I hear in your voice a huge sadness for these children. And you're looking in the face of enormous misery, and what can be worse than the misery of children? But let me ask, Mr. Everett, what about the word impossible? Is it?
I'm listening to you, and I feel your hurt because I've had some kids on that high school level like that. The thing that I can say for you is that you may be the only positive person in that child's life. So you have to try to maintain that attitude that they can see something positive. You're not going to be able to reach them all, but it may be one or two that you can really affect. And I just think that for you just have to try to maintain your positive attitude to each child. I know you're doing that, and I know it's tough, but it's a tough situation.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
In my voice, At school, okay, when I was growing up, school was my shelter.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm upset about is that these kids can't get a break.
Right.
And yes, we are the only positive one
Right.
in their life. And they come in and they hug us and they want to eat lunch with us, you know.
Yeah.
But it's really hard for them to concentrate in a classroom that has so many kids with so many different problems, even though there's 2 teachers in my class.
You know,
And
when we were off here, Mr. Everett and I were talking about the burden on the adult or anybody in a situation who's just surrounded by tragedy and sadness.
Right.
And if you want to see a great example of how people kind of toughen themselves up and close themselves up, cops are a good example. There's a tough job. There's where you're looking at the worst of it every day, and you have to protect yourself. All this stuff, there's all this training to make cops more sensitive, and I sometimes think, well, you go out and do that job and see how sensitive you are after a while. But Mr. Everett was saying that there may be a limit on the amount of time. Now, tell me if I'm wrong. A limit on the amount of time that you can be there, right?
yeah, there is.
Really, you know, then my thing is psychology and math. You can only stay in a negative environment for so long, and then it starts to affect you.
Yeah, unless you would have to be superhuman not to have it get to you. But what do you tell the teacher who's just up to here with it?
It's not that we're up to here with it, you know. It's that the funds are not being put where they need to be put for these children.
Mm-hmm.
They need more. Right. And I believe we could make it more fun for them if we had more one-on-one or just a little fewer kids in the classroom.
And that's another very important point. And Miss Collins, I'm going to let you go so we can move on to another point. Thanks for calling. But she raises a very important point about funds. We've seen this whole Tea Party initiative in Texas to gut school funding. And now this year they're saying they're going to put it back. But that's a factor. That's not to be written off. You can't... how can you, if you're sincere about wanting to reform the schools, how can you do that when you gut the funding? I think that goes back to what one of the earlier callers said, is that there are some people whose agenda is not to reform the schools, it's to kill them. There's no denying that. I think we still have Carla on line 1. Carla, are you still there? Yes, Carla.
Yes, I'm still here. I want to make this very point, that we're missing the bigger issue that is happening here around the country. Earlier this morning at 7, Reverend Barnett was talking about them putting up the Confederacy down in Palestine.
Right.
They want to put a park there. What has happened is, since emancipation, the powers that be have never forgiven the fact that the black man has been freed in this country. The powers that be, if you remember in history, the railroads, the mining companies, and the roads in each of the states were built by chain gang prisoners.
Right.
For free labor. Prison system is...
I understand.
And what I'm saying is, these children are being funneled into this business.
Yes.
This is the way for them to have...
And we need to funnel them out. We need to stop that, and I agree. And I thank you for your call. I'm going to go to line 3, where I'm hoping we still have Robert Medrano on the line. Is this former trustee Medrano?
Yes, it is, Jim.
Sir, how are you?
Fine. Let me see. I know you're running out of time, about 5 more minutes, but
sure.
Let me. I think you can put the whole thing in perspective from cradle to prison.
Let me make sure that listeners understand that this is Robert Medrano on the line, who is a former DISD trustee himself. Please go ahead.
Yes. I got elected back in 1974 as a result of a single-member district with when we came in, Catherine Gilliam, Dr. Conrad, 3 minorities, and our vote was always, for 14 years, 6-3, 6-3. The media would portray us as down racial lines. They will vote along down racial lines.
Right.
It was the truth. It was the truth.
Right.
Then DCA came. Former superintendent Linus Ride and the former superintendent all said Dallas will go totally minority now as a result of the tool of desegregation.
Mm-hmm.
Not books, not scholastics, but as a bus, we will disrupt the whole public education system.
Right.
Now here we come with, I want to become an attorney, but what is my product? If I want to become a criminal attorney, I need criminals. If I'm a judge, I want to sentence criminals. If I want to build a prison, I need criminals.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to be a warden, it's a system that's designed. But what is the product that's going to go in there? What is that product that's going to go in? Then let's create the drug dealer, the crime. Send drugs into the community, and you will always get that business, as the lady pointed out, the railroad. Now, what is the solution? Now, they're fixing to appropriate more money into so-called public education. But a percentage of there is to build more charter schools. So now, if Jim Schultz wants to build a charter school solely for second and third graders, he can.
Mm-hmm.
He can submit an application, and Jim Schultz can build a new charter school. Robert Medrano wants to build a charter school for fifth and sixth graders. Yes, reading, writing, and arithmetic. What about the sports? Who dominates the sports? Minority. Take football away from public education system. Take instruments away from public education system. All that ballet, dancing, choir, all that, take away the culture, the music away, and just give it to reading, writing, and arithmetic. That's the first concept. If you do that, then we're right back to reading, writing, and arithmetic. Those three things. And what system are we going to have? What will happen to us after that if we begin to learn how to read, write, arithmetic? Do we now start developing a new product? The president, the same head of household, as the teacher pointed out. The teacher did point that out. And that's what the problem is, one head of household. Right. I have no other comment to say, but, I know you're running out of time, but I'll get you next Saturday.
Listen, thank you very much for calling in. And former trustee Medrano is describing a very real picture, and it is this cradle to prison pipeline. The other end of it is what happens to these young people when they come out. A lot of them take vocational training in prison. I've talked to ministers in the community who talk about how these kids will come out and say, Pastor, I am never going back there. I took this training in prison, and now I'm going to go get this job, and I'm going to lead a good life. And what does that kid discover in the first year out? He's not getting any job. It doesn't matter what training he had. He's not getting any job. And so and yet there's that corner out there where he can go sell drugs and make more in an afternoon than he'd make working all week anyway. So you do have this system of incentives. I don't happen to believe that it's stacked up exactly on purpose, but it does reflect an attitude that some people's lives are worth less than other people's lives. Right. And we're coming up to the end, and we've gotten into the sadder side of this picture. But Mr. Everett, what's the good side? What have you tell me some experiences you've had about turning kids around?
I have so many, but I'm just going to take one case. Had a young man that I've been tutoring, and that young man had been struggling for math, and I taught him some of my concepts, and those concepts helped him improve his SAT score. Had a fifth grader that was struggling with math, changed his attitude, made it positive for him, and just last week found out that he had made like a 98 for his midterm test. Really? Yeah. So, really? I just know that we have to do what we can do at this particular time. That's what I've taken on myself, is that there are so many things going wrong, but if I have to do what I can do, and what I can do is make a difference in a child's life.
In your experience, what happens for that kid, that fifth grader, who's been struggling, and he's been getting nothing but bad, feedback? What happens to him when he gets that 98?
Oh, attitude change. Conversation goes up. Talking to you, eyes looking at you. Just whole attitude changes.
A different little man.
Dad told me, he said he's talking more. Because you got to understand, if you don't know something, you shy away, and so when you start to shy away, you don't ask questions because you don't know if you're going to ask a question that is not going to make you seem dumb.
Right, and no one kid wants to seem dumb.
Right.
And so a lot of that that attitude is in fact a shying away from life.
And that's why with my no pencil, no paper approach, which my website is nopencilnopaper.com, is to take these individuals and change attitudes and a group, because I have a concept book that every page in that book is a PowerPoint. Now we're talking about not having to deal with a kid that maybe even struggles to write, and so he's embarrassed and he doesn't want to write anything down.
Right. I don't want to get out of here. We're running out of time. Some people are going to want to find out more about your stuff, so let's make sure people know how to find you. Give them the website again or any other contact.
Okay, you can go to nopencilnopaper.com, and my email address is GITA, which stands for God is the Answer. So it's GITA at nopencilnopaper.com.
All one word. And I want to thank you very much for coming on. It's great to hear, and this whole debate gets so depressing at times. Yeah. It's great to hear a voice of hope and somebody who's been out there looking at it and doing it. Thank you for being here. I hear that whistling music, which means the big hook. They're pulling me out of here for the real show that comes on next. This is Jim Schutz with Get Off My Lawn. We'll see you here again next week. Thanks for listening.